Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forum. We do this every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Love for you to join us here. I want to talk to you about earthquakes. Earthquakes are in the Bible, symbols of events that precurse the end of time, the end of days, the time when Jesus will come. But a viewer writes, I have a friend that lives close to where earthquakes in Puerto Rico are occurring. According to that friend, they started as soon as they started fracking, just like it happened here, where this person lives. Fracking pretty much ended here, and so did our quakes. True or false? Yes. A published report last year, the U.S. Geological Survey released a flurry of reports on the topic of human-induced earthquakes. It's now clear there is a connection between oil, gas extraction, and earthquake activity. However, the nature of that connection has been widely misunderstood and misreported, even by some of the most reputable publications in the world. For example, CNN wrote, traditionally, Puerto Rico has not been known for heavy seismic activity, but now that could be changing. There have been more than 500 quakes of magnitude 2 or greater since December 28th, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. Many of them were relatively shallow, which means they were likely felt on land. Of the hundreds of earthquakes, 32 were magnitude 4 and above, including the ones last Monday and Tuesday. This goes back several weeks. And overall, there have been more than 1,000 quakes of all sizes since the earthquake swarm first started in December 2019. Most of them too small to feel. InvestmentWatchBlog.com posted January 9th, 2020. The mainstream media really began to take notice when the main island of Puerto Rico was hit by a magnitude 4.7 earthquake on December 28, and that was quickly followed by a magnitude 5.0. Then just a few days ago, we witnessed a magnitude 5.8 quake, a magnitude 6.4 quake, and a magnitude 6.0 quake in rapid succession. A 6.4 magnitude earthquake rumbled across Puerto Rico on Tuesday, killing at least one person and knocking out power to virtually the entire island of more than 3 million. An aftershock 3 hours later registered at magnitude 6. The tremblers came one day after the island was shaken by a 5.8 magnitude quake that crumbled homes and triggered states of emergency across the island. Needless to say, none of this is normal. I would add, needless to say, none of this was really reported either. In fact, the magnitude 6.4 quake was the largest that Puerto Rico had experienced in more than 100 years. Did you hear that anywhere? The destruction that has been caused by these earthquakes is immense, and at one point approximately 2/3 of the main island was without power. Eventually the power will be restored, the structures will be rebuilt, but in some cases the damage that has been done can never be repaired. Punta Ventana, a stone arch shaped like a window and located beside the ocean of Puerto Rico's southern coast, was destroyed by a 5.8 earthquake early Monday morning. A 5.1 quake followed just hours later. In other reports, it says major seismic events are happening all over the world, so frequently now that they barely make a blip in the news. Unfortunately, most Americans are not going to start paying close attention until a major disaster hits the lower 48 states. According to Earthquake Track, there have been more than 36,000 earthquakes of magnitude 1.5 or greater in the United States just in the last year. The shaking literally never stops. But the good news is that most of the quakes are so small we don't feel them. But scientists also assure us that we are way overdue for a major event, and this is particularly true on the West Coast. Someday soon, a major disaster will strike without any warning, and then most Americans will finally understand how vulnerable we truly are. Metrocosm.com tells us that an earthquake is the result of two blocks of earth suddenly slipping past one another. Before the slip, the blocks are already in motion, but because their edges are bumpy, they get stuck against others at the boundary. As the blocks continue to push in different directions, the pressure between them gradually builds. Once that pressure grows strong enough to overcome the friction, the blocks slide past each other suddenly, and we have an earthquake. When wastewater is injected near a fault zone, it effectively serves as a lubricant, causing these blocks to slip sooner than they otherwise would. Wastewater injection induces earthquakes in the same sense that a doctor induces childbirth. Given the right conditions, they take an event that is already in process and cause it to occur sooner than it otherwise would. However, just as it would be odd to say that doctors cause children to be born, it's not quite right to say that wastewater injection is causing earthquakes. For the reasons explained above, the wastewater injection well is only capable of inducing a felt earthquake if it is located near a moderately large fault, and only if that fault has accumulated a sufficient amount of build-up pressure. Of the more than 35,000 wastewater injection wells active in the U.S., only a few dozen have been linked to induced earthquakes. Water plays four primary roles in oil and gas extraction. One of the four things that play on the fault lines, only wastewater disposal is responsible for the vast majority of induced earthquakes, and then only when the circumstances are right. While fracking involves the injection of liquid into the ground, the depth is in general too shallow to induce felt earthquakes. According to the USGS, there are only 3 reported cases in which fracking itself was responsible for an earthquake strong enough for anybody to feel it. Fracking therefore induces earthquakes indirectly rather than causing them. So yes, fracking is responsible, but only as much as every other form of oil gas extraction. Fracking is only a small piece of the pie. The practice of underground disposal has been used by the industry for 70 years, yet the uptick in seismic activity has only occurred in the past few years. The current hoopla started when Bernie Sanders blamed fracking in Oklahoma for making that state the #1 place for earthquakes this year. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, spent hydraulic fracturing fluid represents 10% or less of the fluids disposed of in saltwater disposal wells in Oklahoma. Bernie Sanders, noted scientist and expert in the subject. But here's the thing that goes behind all of that news. The Earth's crust is broken into pieces, and it's moving. It's constantly moving. We know that. Why is it broken? It is broken, many believe, because of the flood in Noah's day. The Bible says that the great deep, the water that was held under the mantle of this earth, was allowed to come out. The mantle was broken to allow this water to come up, and it sprayed up with tremendous pressure, apparently. At the same time, there was water captured in the atmosphere that was let go. So you had water coming down and you had water going up, but the water going up was moving these plates. You can go online, you can look at Google Map, and it'll show you these marks, these scars, these plates and where they are. You'll see a mountain, a ridge of mountains right up through the Atlantic Ocean. Fissures where water would have been allowed to come out. The Bible says the flood came from the waters that came up from below and the waters that were allowed to come down from above. And God said that He would never again destroy the earth by water. Next time it'll be fire. Fracking is not the problem. The earth is in movement because of sin. You go back into the stories, and that's what you find out. The wickedness on the earth was so great that God destroyed every living being, man and animal, except for the 7 that were in the ark and the 2 of every kind of animal that were preserved in the ark. They set out to repopulate the earth. I'm guessing that didn't include fish, water animals. Everything comes back to the Bible.